Rising up the middle. He's in! Utah leads. Daniels for the win. Caught. It's gone. LSU does it. Mason Taylor.
That last video is what you saw basically end the national championship hopes for Bryce Young and the Crimson Tide. And guess what? Bryce Young gone. New quarterback coming in. A lot of questions surrounding this offense. A lot of hype surrounding this defense. This is going to be a very entertaining preview for sure. I am Colin Bashnew, your host here with Bash's CFB Show. Of course, that's my nickname growing up. Of course, Bash's CFB Show on TikTok, as it says right here. You can go on there. You see all the schedule predictions. I should be pounding those out here in the next 24 hours. Should be doing quite a bit of those. And then, of course, you can check out the playlist up here. See all the schedule predictions upcoming. We have South Carolina, and we have another one that was SEC Auburn. Two requests that I saw on TikTok. If you have a team that you want to request, you can comment down below, and you can make sure to go over to TikTok to communicate and talk with me. I am very active there. Live's coming soon. I have the ability to go live. Hopefully we do that. So make sure you guys like and subscribe. Check out what we have on the channel. Check out what the Lowdown Network has for you. It's THA Lowdown Network. Just make sure you check it out. Search it on YouTube. All right, players leaving for the Alabama Crimson Tide off to the next level. They have quite a bit leaving, and of course Bryce Young, the quarterback, number 1 overall pick, he is gone, along with Jahmyr Gibbs, running back, who got drafted in the first round. Have to replace the tight end and Cameron Lott too, and then they have to replace a couple of offensive linemen with tackle Tyler Steen and Emil Ekiyor Jr. Leaving the offensive guard, of course. On the defensive side of the ball, you lost 3 defensive linemen, with Will Anderson Jr. being the impact player there, and then 2 interior guys with DJ Dale and Byron Young. In the back 7, Henry To'oTo'o is gone off to the NFL linebacker. Then you had a good handful of corners. DeMarco Hellum's kind of a nickel/safety, so he played a little bit of both. He's gone. Also 2 corners, and Brian Branch and Elias Ricks off. And finally, Jordan Battle, who we'll talk about that safety position and that battle is leaving behind and how that's going to be filled. All right, transferring out for Alabama, there were actually quite a bit, I'm not going to lie, and not a whole lot transferring in. Starting out with running back Trey Sanders off to TCU to try to replace the 1-2 punch that they had with DeMarcado and Kendre Miller last year. Wide receivers, a lot of wide receivers gone. Trayshawn Holden off to Oregon. JoJo Earl also going to TCU with Trey Sanders. Aaron Anderson, the younger guy, going off to LSU. We'll see. He was a freshman, I believe, last year. He didn't get a whole lot of playing time when Kobe Prentice and Isaiah Bond did. So we'll see what ends up happening with him going off to LSU. That's still a very prestigious program right there. And then you had Tyler Harrell, the Louisville transfer that Alabama fans certainly hyped up, going off to Miami, and Christian Leary going off to Georgia Tech, tight end Elijah Brown going off to FAU. On the offensive line, you lost 2 tackles, and Damian George off to Florida, and Tommy Brockermeyer, which was massive there for TCU to be able to pick up a 5-star kid, former 5-star like that. And then interior, you had a couple of starters, or a starter, but a couple guys with starting experience on your offensive line leave, and Javion Cohen off to Miami, a big-time starter that left. Tanner Bowles, a little bit less of a big-time starter or big-time player, and he never started, going off to Kentucky. On the defensive side of the ball, you had a couple of interior guys, Amari Knight going off to the UCF Knights, and then Braylon Ingraham going off to Syracuse. Linebacker Demoy Kennedy off to Colorado, and in the secondary, Traquan Figgins, I think it's Figgins, off to USC, and then Kyrie Jackson, a talented kid, going to Oregon, and then Jaquez Robinson going off to Colorado. Punter Jack Martin leaves for Houston, and kicker Chase Allen going to UTSA. Now, transferring in, Alabama, they pick and choose their transfers, and they got a good handful of quality guys. They start with Tommy Reese's former quarterback at Notre Dame. Tyler Buchner comes in trying to battle. It's a three-headed battle right now. We'll talk more about that. Tyler Buchner coming in. Big time pickup, if you ask me. A guy that's playmaking ability can be even more amplified in this Alabama system with Tommy Rees, who had Michael Mayer at Notre Dame. CJ Dupree, I think he could potentially have a big year. We're going to talk about breakout players here in a little bit. He's probably going to be one. He is one. Just going to let you know. Linebacker Tresman Marshall, a talented kid coming in from Georgia. And then cornerback Trey Amos, absolute stud at Louisiana Lafayette, but the best DB that they brought in was not him. It was Jalen Key, a player that helps with the depth from UAB at Alabama at the safety position. All right. So now talking about those breakout players, I want to start with the offensive side of the ball. A lot of people are going to talk about Jace McClellan, maybe Roydell Williams, the experienced guys. Jace McClellan, of course, and I'm going to turn on that bottom line ticker. I kind of forgot. But Jace McClellan, of course, had a pretty decent year last year as the second running back to Jahmyr Gibbs. He had 655. He had as many rushing touchdowns as Gibbs. But watch out for Justice Haynes. I think he's an absolute freak. I think he's going to play immediately. I think they have a good running back room because of how good he is. And then I think that CJ Dupree, a breakout star, not a whole lot of you guys may know of him. I think he's going to have a pretty massive season this upcoming year. And then I also want to highlight on defense, you have a couple of guys starting with a safety who's probably going to start as a true freshman. His name is Caleb Downs. If you guys don't follow recruiting like that, Caleb Downs is a guy that I think is going to be tremendous and play an absolute ton for this team. He's projected to be a starter. We'll see how that goes. And then finally, I'm going to talk about Trey Amos, that cornerback for Louisiana. And again, I said Jalen Key is a little bit better. A lot of you guys might know Jalen Key, so why are you saying Trey Amos? Trey Amos is probably going to be asked to cover a lot more because I think the best corner in America is on the other side of the field from him, and that's Kool-Aid McKinstry. I do expect Trey Amos to start over Terrion Arnold. Terrion Arnold was somewhat of a liability last year in coverage. Unless he takes a massive leap, I think they brought in Trey Amos to start. Now, we're going to talk about this roster here. This roster breakdown starts with that quarterback position: Ty Simpson, Tyler Buchner, Jalen Milroe. Now, you have Dylan Lonergan, you have Eli Holstein. Neither of them are going to be ready. That is very clear. They're not in this battle. Can Eli Holstein be a guy next year that is able to be that filler? I'm not sure. It really just depends on what you get out of your quarterback this year. If Ty Simpson takes that step forward, wins that job, that's big for Alabama. He's the most talented kid in that room. But Tyler Buchner, probably my favorite to be the starter right now. He's got the good mix of athleticism and the ability to throw the ball with some starting experience, more starting experience than a Jalen Milroe, who started against Texas A&M. And that was kind of a mess last year. He came in against Arkansas as well, and that was somewhat of a mess. Now, a dynamic athlete in space, certainly. When you talk about his rushing ability, Jalen Milroe, 263 yards rushing, 259 or 297 yards. I don't know how I got 259. 297 yards passing. So he was almost running the ball as many yards as he was throwing the ball, and that's tough in modern football, especially with the system that they had. Quarterback position, my favorite is Tyler Buchner right now, but it would not be surprising if any of them get there. The freakish player is Jalen Milroe. The most talented arm is Ty Simpson. Any of these three kids could start. I have no idea right now who it will be. My lean is Tyler Buchner. At running back, I already talked about it. Jace McClellan, Roydell Williams, they're experienced guys. Jam Miller, been in the system 1 year. He's ready for his second year, but Justice Haynes is that big-time playmaker. I think he's going to be running back number 2, and I think he's going to, by the end of the year, split carries a lot with Jace McClellan. Not a shot to Richard Young. I think he's a great player too, but I think Justice Haynes is the more ready of the two to play immediately and make a massive impact, and I think he will. At the wide receiver position, this is something that's big. You didn't really lose too many impact players. A lot of the transfers I talked about, they didn't work out necessarily. Trayshawn Holden was probably the guy who played the most. JoJo Earl, probably the second most notable name. Christian Leary got out there. Tyler Harrell got the hype. But for the most part, what you return at wide receiver, and this is a kind of a good problem, here it is. It's really good for you. Jermaine Burton, I'm not the biggest fan of Jermaine Burton. I don't think he's all that good. I do expect for Isaiah Bond to very much take his spot by the end of the year. Kobe Prentice is probably going to be playing in more of a slot role, while Ja'Cory Brooks is a perfect Z. As a freshman, he made some big catches and down the stretch for sure. And last year, he showed off a little bit of love, but at the end of the day, he's got to take a massive jump here to be able to be that wide receiver one that we had thought he could be. He was right behind Jermaine Burton as far as yards go. They were pretty much the same, 677 to 674. I will say Jermaine Burton was kind of forced to be that number one receiver for this team. However, it was for a very long time. Jahmyr Gibbs was the leading receiver, and also Trayshawn Holden held that for a little while. Do expect that this team is going to have a big jump for one of these younger players or some of these guys that have not fully grasped that moment. And it's not going to be Jermaine Burton that is the leading receiver. I'd be shocked. If he is, I think something probably went wrong for Holloman Wiggins in that wide receiver room. Kendrick Law, another player to watch out for. And then, of course, Alabama fans will tell you all about Malik Benson being a player that could potentially play. I'm worried that Malik Benson's going to be another Tyler Harrell, albeit Tyler Harrell was hurt for most of the year, so that's a little bit unfair to him, but it's pretty clear if Tyler Harrell is transferring out, he wasn't going to work out at Alabama regardless. At tight end, I think you really needed C.J. Dupree because behind him you don't have a ton of experience there. Robbie Outs is a guy that's probably going to play a decent bit. Amari Niblock is another player that you could see maybe taking a second-year jump in the system. But overall, you really needed to pick up C.J. Dupree, and I think you got a good player in him, especially from the receiving perspective. All right, you got a great tackle in J.C. Latham, but the other side is the question. Are you going to have to start the freshman Caden Proctor on that left tackle spot? Is Elijah Pritchett going to be the guy that takes that job? I am not super convinced that they have a great option at tackle outside of J.C. Latham. That is a big concern for me. I'm also concerned about them at guard. Now, Darian Dalcourt, he's going to be a starter. He's going to be really good. And Seth McLaughlin is going to be the guy in the middle. James Brockermeyer is a guy that is a good backup to Terrence Ferguson as well. But Tyler Booker, they're hoping that he's going to be ready in year two, a talented player, but is he going to be fully ready? There are a good amount of questions on this offensive line. And overall, as you can guess, there's a lot of questions about this team offensively in general. On defense, not as many questions, right? You could start with talking about the front three-ish, maybe front four. You could talk about the jack position, which is going to be taken by Chris Braswell. I think he's the best front seven player on this roster. We'll talk about Dallas Turner in a minute. Jaheim Otis, absolute beast in the middle. Definitely made an impact as a freshman, and as a sophomore, I do expect to jump there. Tim Smith, a player that can definitely play too. Damon Payne is there along with James Smith, a true freshman that is expected to play a decent bit. And then on the edge, you have Justin Ebo. I think it's Eboigbe. He's an experienced player, been in the system a very, very long time. In fact, I think he's a fifth-year player, if I remember correctly. And as far as what he was able to do last year, well, he was a player that was able to just clog up a lot of run gaps. He wasn't anything crazy when he got his time, but he hasn't had a whole lot of experience. That's going to be the weak point. That's going to be the question mark of this defense, is how is that edge rusher position going to be on that 3-4 system. And then you can talk about the rest of the linebackers. I talked about Chris Braswell, who's going to be taking that role that Will Anderson had last year, and I think he's suited for it. Tresman Marshall, expected to start, talented kid from Georgia, experienced kid, but he never really fully cracked the rotation. That can be a concern for me if I'm an Alabama fan. You also have Justin Jefferson, a JUCO transfer who came in. And then you also have another middle linebacker that you could really like, a Jahad Campbell, who could take a big step forward this year. And then Deontay Lawson is probably going to be the big player. And then the strong outside linebacker is going to be Dallas Turner. We all know about him. Look, bottom line is this. I'm going to say it right now how it is. Dallas Turner did not have the production last year that he did as a freshman. Dallas Turner, maybe, to me, a dirty player. Not a guy I prefer to be on my team. He's kind of in it for the selfish reasons. But yet, Alabama, still Alabama. He's still really talented. He's a big, big dude. He weighed in at like 240 out of high school, and there's a reason why he made an impact as a true freshman. But last year, kind of like a punk, honestly, just dirty stuff and cheap shots and no need for some of the stuff he was doing, the slamming Jackson Dart's head into the ground, ripping his helmet off, driving Quinn Ewers into the ground. Those are the three examples that are obvious that we have seen on social media. But still a good player nonetheless. Production was not there, however, for him. 4 sacks. A lot of people want to say he's the best edge rusher. He's going to have to do better than 4 sacks to be considered the best edge rusher in America, because I think there are some players in other universities in the Big Ten or in the SEC, like a Micah Williams, that I'm really high on as a true sophomore, who could be better. And we shouldn't just assume that he's going to be great. And for those of you Alabama fans that are trying to tell me, by the way, he'll do better without Willie Anderson, make that make sense. You have Willie Anderson on one side, Dallas Turner on the other. Why would Dallas Turner, who doesn't get the attention on the defense, it's Willie Anderson, who had 10 sacks, by the way. Why the heck would Dallas Turner not benefit from the attention being somewhere else? The attention's on him, which I don't think it will be, because I think Chris Braswell is a better player. The attention's on him, though. What are we talking about there? For those of you that, by the way, are going to say, oh, Braswell only had 2.5 sacks, I think it's a little bit different, though. He was backing up Willie Anderson Jr., who was probably the most talented, best player in America, number 3 overall pick. It's a little bit different. He did not get the snaps that Dallas Turner did. Dallas Turner got the snaps, didn't have the production. He needs to take a step up. I talked about the secondary. I think they're really good. You add a whole lot of depth, even if Terrion Arnold doesn't start. The fact that he has started and played and made mistakes at that, that's a big deal. Malachi Moore, very experienced slot guy. He's going to play that nickel and hold it down for sure. I am a little bit concerned about starting a true freshman at safety, but they don't necessarily need to. They have Devontae Smith, who's a pretty solid player there. They have Christian Story as a safety who was expecting to play. And then, of course, adding Jalen Key. The pressure's not on them to start Caleb Downs because of the fact that they just don't have that talented of a player, because he's an ordinary freshman. Caleb Downs is special. He would get immediate playing time anywhere in the country. I truly believe that. Kool-Aid McKinstry, best cornerback in America. Trey Amos, he's going to have to fill, in that secondary to be able to show that they have a lot of strength there. All right. By the way, kicker, punter duties, Will Reichert's back. He's going to be kicking a kickoff specialist and place kicker. James Burnap is expected to be the punter. All right, 10.5 wins. That's what the over-under is set at. Keep that in mind as we go through the schedule prediction here. And here is the schedule prediction. I know it is not super tough. I messed up and didn't pull it up here. Or I know it is a super tough schedule for Alabama. And we'll talk about resume and stuff like that at the end of the video. And we'll talk about SEC championship scenarios, because we all know that Alabama is definitely a contender for that SEC championship. All right. Oh, I think I actually messed this one up. I did. So I'm going to pull it up here. And here's the win-loss record. Boom. We're going to make this a lot quicker. We're going to run through it just real quick. Obvious wins here: MTSU, USF, Chattanooga. Those are the obvious ones, right? They lose to Texas early because I think Texas's defense is a lot better, and I think this will definitely be a balanced offense with Cedric Baxter probably getting a lot of carries, having a big breakout game in Tuscaloosa. But Quinn Ewers, this pass offense, I trust in it. I trust in Steve Sarkisian. I think this is where you could have a guy like Trey Amos and a guy like Caleb Downs have some young player moments, or in the case of Trey Amos, not necessarily young player moments, but G5 player to transition to Power 5 football big time. I think those are the big moments. But I also don't think Alabama can really score in that game. Now, I do have them beating Ole Miss, and that's going to be a tough one, beating Mississippi State right there on the road, losing at Texas A&M for the second time in 3 years, second straight time they lose in Kyle Field. They have the talent to do it. Do I think Texas A&M is going to be great? Find out later on, okay? So as you can see, I have them running the table after that. I have them beating Tennessee, getting their revenge. I think that defense is going to absolutely be able to adjust from their mistakes from last year. and be able to show that they are a better team than Tennessee like they thought they were last year. And I happen to kind of agree. I thought Alabama was a better team than Tennessee last year, but the better team doesn't always win. Tennessee had the matchup. Tennessee had the number. DeMarco Hellams and Terrion Arnold got abused in that game. I also think off the bye, they get the revenge against LSU. This is going to be a big-time game. I think everybody's going to be talking about this, but the fact that Alabama already has 2 losses, is this an opportunity for them to get back in the playoff picture? After all, they would have had games against Texas A&M and Texas, 2 talented teams. Ole Miss, Tennessee, and now LSU, a third giant game that they could potentially win, and I think they win it at home and show the nation that they are back in it for a playoff conversation. At Kentucky, I think they beat Kentucky. Could Kentucky be a team, though, that could throw a wrench into Alabama's plans? This is a weird spot, a weird game. Right after LSU, they could be a little bit beaten up. I just don't think Kentucky has the talent to be able to do it. They have a great wide receiver room, but that kind of plays right into Alabama's strengths right there. And like I said, Chattanooga, no problem. I think Auburn is going to give Alabama a challenge. I think by the end of the year, Auburn's going to be playing their best football. I think Alabama wins that game, but I think it's another tough one. So, bottom line is this. They lose one game in conference play, and that one game is Texas A&M. That means you know right now LSU's not a threat to them. Ole Miss is not a threat to them. Arkansas is not a threat to them in that Western Division. Auburn's not a threat to them because guess what? What this means is you win the tiebreaker against all of them, and they at least have 1 loss in conference, at minimum, have 1 loss in conference, each of those teams. The one team that could throw a wrench into things is Texas A&M. So does Texas A&M have a magical enough season to be able to go back, to be able to go to Atlanta for the very first time in program history as an SEC team for sure? And, of course, you guys know if you saw my Georgia prediction, I have them going undefeated here, 12-0, 8-0 in conference play. So that means one of those 2 teams is playing Georgia. Now, I'm going to tell you this. Alabama has a potential to make a playoff with 2 losses. So those of you Alabama fans that are like, we're not going to miss the playoff again. We're not going to go 10-2. This is a tough schedule, and both of those losses are in the front half of the year. The second game and the 6th game of the year. So you play great football down the stretch. Hypothetically, you beat a Georgia team that's 12-0 in Atlanta, plus you beat an LSU team who's going to be really good, plus you beat a Tennessee team whose floor is still pretty good, and you are able to get the revenge. Your 2 losses are against really good teams, a Texas team that could win the Big 12 and a Texas A&M team that may contend for the SEC West. But if Texas A&M has that second loss in conference, they have 1 loss, they have 2 losses. That means Alabama goes. So if Alabama is gifted an opportunity to go to the SEC championship, that gives them the opportunity as a maybe number 6 team in the country, number 5 team in the country to beat Georgia and be the first 2-loss team in the college football playoff, the 4-team version. And of course, this is the last one. We haven't seen it yet. Could we see it this year? Let me know in the comments below if you think there is a chance that we could get a 2-loss team in the playoff. And do you think Alabama will go over that 10.5 win mark? I personally would not be surprised by anything. That game against Texas is a coin flip for me. They have a lot of coin flip games, a lot like they were last year. But make sure you guys like and subscribe. And again, friendly debate down below. Okay, I don't mean any hate towards any program or anything like that or any certain player when I talk about them. This is just football at the end of the day. So, for everybody, I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good one.